Let's talk about those two drivers. Where should we go first? Let's talk about Senna first, because you've already mentioned Monaco 88. He's leading the Grand Prix. He crashes at Portier. What were his greatest strengths as a racing driver?
I think it's several things, of course. There were just his ultimate speed. You know, he was incredibly fast. You know, just otherworldly almost. I remember once at Monaco, for some reason I was at a little bit of a loose end, and I went down to the, you know, the way the pit lane there, you can go down those steps and you're right there where the fast chicane, the fast entry to the swimming pool is. I mean, it's pretty amazing.
They've pushed the wall back now since then. But it's still stunning even now.
Well, and then it was an Armco tunnel. And I remember, I mean, people always talk about things being stunning, and I say, well, yeah, but you're not really stunned, are you? And I was down there watching him go through there, and I was literally stunned.
His commitment is what stood out.
Well, his commitment, just the sheer speed going through there with, you know, I mean, no margin for error whatsoever. The barriers are just right there, and it's just so fast. You can't hardly believe it. You know, you feel like your eyes are playing tricks on you or something. So there was the speed, there was the commitment, there was the dedication to the job. Every minute of his life was dedicated towards winning those races and winning the world championship. You know, in the car, out of the car, at the track, at home, you know, studying things at home, working out, physical fitness, just everything. His whole life dedicated.
We're talking about an era pre-data, really, compared to now at least.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what was his feedback like?
His feedback was very good. And when you would go through a debrief, you know, we had the setup sheet, and everything on a Formula One car is adjustable, and so there's a blank to fill in: caster, camber, kingpin, inclination, wing levels, damper settings, spring rates, roll bar, anti-roll bar, you know, everything. And with some drivers, you could go into a debrief and you'd know, well, he's not going to change this, 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 and this, and maybe you could fill out half of it beforehand. With Senna, you couldn't fill in a single box. He would want to go through every one of those parameters for every corner. And every corner he'd want to talk, what was it like on entry? What was it like on braking? What was it like mid-corner? What was it like exit? What was it like change of direction? Every corner, every parameter, and then you could fill it in. And you'd go through that. It might take a couple of hours to go through all of that. And in the end, maybe you had changed several things, and it'll help here and it'll hurt there. And you know, what's the summary then? What's going to be best? And that'll be it. That'll be the end of the debrief. But sometimes you would go through all of that, and he wouldn't change a thing. But he would go through it all anyway, just to make sure that he was comfortable, that it was absolutely optimized, and there was nothing more that we could get out of the car.
And a similar approach from Alain Prost? Or?
Prost was maybe not quite that intense. And of course, I was Senna's race engineer, not Prost's race engineer. But he was also very good, and he would always try to optimize the car and get as much as he possibly could out of the car, make the car do as much work as possible. He was always trying to get absolutely everything he could out of the car. You know, he was so good to work with. Nothing was too much trouble. He would do anything he wanted to in testing and give it a good, you know, you try something weird and wonderful, he'd be perfectly happy to go out and give it a good hard 5 laps, you know, to make sure that he'd given it every chance to work, you know. So just a great guy to work with.
And you know Alain's nickname, the Professor.
Yeah.
Was he deserving of that nickname?
Yeah, I think at least in part he was. It wasn't so much that he had a great, say, theoretical knowledge of vehicle dynamics or whatever. He relied on the engineer for that. But he was intelligent, and he had very good memory. You know, and this is pre-computers and data and all of that sort of thing. So, but I used to carry around these 2 big, you know, those pilot sort of briefcases that they carry, 2 of those, full of every bit of paper that they'd ever generated. You know, every setup sheet, every lap time sheet, everything. Because
from previous years at that restaurant,
and you know, previous to that year. So you get halfway through the year, and he'd say, you know, this corner, it's a bit like the third corner in Brazil or something, you know. And I think we used 975 front springs there, and that'd be pretty good here. And I'd go back, you know, look it all up. Yeah. 975 front spring.
And he was right.
That sort of thing, you know, that sort of memory.
Yeah.
And I think being in the car and having it right on the edge, it focuses the mind and it just burns all that stuff into your brain, you know. So just incredible is memory and how you know.
Now, from the outside, the story that we were being fed certainly was that they became obsessed with each other. Is that a fair comment?
I think that's quite fair. Senna, for example, used to say to me, look, we only have to worry about Prost. Yeah, the others aren't a problem. We just have to beat Prost. It's him and me, and that's it, you know. So,
and was it more from Senna towards Prost rather than the other way around?
Perhaps a little more, but some people perhaps misjudge Prost. He's very competitive, iron-willed. You know, he's all there as a race car driver. And I think, I was Senna's man. You know, I was his race engineer and all that. But I used to work with Prost at tests and things like that. We had no problem with each other. You know, well, in fact, he asked me to go to Ferrari with him. And
we'll come on to that. Yeah.
So when it came to driving a race car and being competitive, he was hard as nails, really. And maybe not quite, as I said before, Senna could be a little over the top, the Brundle thing, or later the Ferrari-McLaren crash, you know, the famous 19...
Which year are you talking about? Oh, 1990.
Yeah,
1990, turn one.
Prost was in the Ferrari, and yeah, you know, so Senna could be a little over the top. And in fact, you know, that incident, I'd sort of say, well, he kind of let himself down a bit, you know. But,
Suzuka 1990.
You know, but I'd say, you know, he's a friend, and sometimes friends do things that you don't agree with, but they're still your friend.
Now,
you know?
You say Senna was a friend. What was he like away from the racetrack? Would you hang out?
No, we didn't. We were we were on very good terms, but it was very professional, and we didn't go and hang out. You know, I mean, I'd be at the circuit till 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning all the time. So, you know, there wasn't the opportunity, and he'd be back to Brazil quite a lot.
But if he came to the factory, obviously not the MTC, it was pre-MTC,
yeah.
But would you go to the pub in the evening for a meal?
No, not really. It'd all be in the factory, and
So
we'd have meetings, and he'd talk to the other people, you know, people in the fab shop, you know, machinists, and talk to all the people, and to make his presence felt and make them feel part of it, you know, and all that sort of things.